All righty. We are sitting at 11:30 right now and waiting for some more people to get into the room. So we'll give it about 5 minutes before we get started here with this session. But this is the mock interview power hour for, oh, we got two people in here now. This is the mock interview power hour for Art Heroes, where we're going to be going through and I'm going to be asking you guys some interview questions, sort of setting you up and giving you an idea of what the interviewing process can look like at these various studios, and sort of a breakdown of what you can do with some marketing for yourself. I think while we're waiting for some more people to join, I'll ramble on for a second about what you can do to be able to market yourself to get in front of these interviews and to bring work in. So there's two different types of marketing. Good way to be able to break it down in just sort of a broad umbrella terms is you've got active and you've got passive marketing. So active marketing is where you're going in and you're sending off your resumes, you're knocking on the company's doors, you're saying, hey, I'd really like to be able to work with you guys. Within the active marketing field, you're going to be sending off emails to the hiring managers. One of my recommendations for this is always, hey, now we got 4 people in here. I'll get to the mock interview portion in a sec, just giving folks a moment to join and giving you some little sprinkles of wisdom here at the beginning for active versus passive marketing. But one of the things that you can do when it comes to active marketing that goes beyond just finding a company's website and clicking on their job section, you can also go to that same company and look them up on LinkedIn and find the names of all the art directors and animation heads and whatever positions and titles are relevant to you. Go in and follow those people on Instagram. It's a great way to be able to start building your network. If they have any links on their pages, go to their websites. If they have an ArtStation, follow them on ArtStation. Start liking their stuff, commenting on their stuff. And over time, this will start to build a digital relationship with these studios that can be really, really helpful for you to be able to get your foot in the door. I remember when I first graduated from college way back in the day, I had a notebook that I sat there for my first month out of school and wrote down 200 different companies that I wanted to work for. And these companies were all over the United States. They were all over the world. And within that notebook, what I had in there was the company's name, of course, their website, their email, and then the important figureheads within that company. So who was the art director, who was the senior, who was the owner, and then I would write down their emails. I also left space on each one of these pages for these companies for when I had contacted them, because oftentimes when you reach out to a studio, you're going to get something along the lines of, oh, well, we're not exactly hiring right now, but we've got a project that's coming up in 3 months or 6 months. If you could check back with us then, and hopefully we'll have more information for possible positions at that time. Well, when you're doing that with 200 different companies, it really helps to be able to have a physical notebook that you can write all this information down in. So as time went on over the course of that next year, while I was really trying to get my foot in the door, I would be able to every 3 months, every 6 weeks or so, check in, go to that page within my notebook and see, okay, well, I emailed this studio, 3 months ago. Here's the last thing that they said. This is who I spoke to. And then you start getting an email thread, and you can start emailing them and say, hey, I spoke to this particular person a month ago. They said that they were interested in hiring, and I'm, following up on the creative concept artist, 3D modeler position that we had discussed previously, to see if any forward movement had happened with that. And that is a great way to start to build these long-term relationships with these studios, instead of just going to the website, filling out those applications. Don't you just hate those applications on the website that ask you to give your entire resume history, and you have to enter it in manually? There's no autofill, and it takes you about an hour to be able to apply for a job that probably has thousands of other people that have applied for that role, and maybe you will or you will not hear from that position. So what I'm describing with this active marketing is a more nuanced, personable way to not exactly skip the line, but at least to be able to make your name and your portfolio and your work something that sticks out more on their radar instead of just being one name on a giant list of respondees that they got through their website. Um, the other one that I wanted to discuss real fast is called passive marketing. So, passive marketing, it's a fancy term. It just means your social media, and it means keeping your work online and keeping your stuff updated. At this point nowadays, what they're always recommending for the social media sites is that you show your process. You know, give people some flavor, let them get to know who you actually are. There's another student here at Art Heroes that's doing a wonderful job with their social media, where she's going through and she said she wanted to do like a motion graphic or a 3D model of the alphabet. And so she's doing each one of the letters, and she really kind of talks about, you know, what it is, what her life is like as a 3D modeler. She's got, you know, all the purple lights that you expect set up like the best of the Twitch streamers, and really does a good job of shooting all of that content, but showing works in progress, and not just showing the finished work, but telling the story and then showing a little bit of yourself on there too, really helps people to be able to connect emotionally with what you're doing and feel like they're part of the process. This also helps to get your name out there. I can't tell you how many times I've had people email me just from seeing my ArtStation or my Instagram and say, "Hey, look, man, I know that you do this." One of the other stories I like to tell is, you know, I see a lot of professionals out there, and they go and work for Pixar, they work somewhere else, and then you never see any of their other sketches or their work or their personal stuff online anymore. And I think that's a big mistake. I understand that you're busy and doing art for a living is your job, but while you're in college and in your early 20s, you've got a bunch of other buddies that are going to school for business. They're going to school for stuff that is really super boring, and you're doing the passion career. And as these people, 5 years down the line after getting out of school and getting into their late 20s, they start to take on junior management roles. They start to sit in on some of those decision making meetings, and within those decision making meetings, they're going to say, you know, Bob, who's the head of the company that's been there for 20 years and, you know, mentally checked out 25 years ago, is going to say, "Oh, we've got this new product that we're coming out with, this new line. You know, we've got to do an advertising campaign. We want to make it exciting. We want to make it pop. We need some flyers. We need a video. We need a 3D demo explainer video." And at that moment, you know, Sally, who you went to high school with on social media, has been watching your work for the past 5 years. She's got a very boring job that she's already started to check out of. And when this moment comes up within that meeting, you've been posting your stuff consistently, your works in progress, your final works. You know, you're kind of hitting your social network outside of the artist realm with this creative process. So Sally instantly says, "Oh my goodness, Bob, I've got just the person to be able to do this 3D video for us. I know him. His name is Will. He's a great artist, and he would be just the one for you to be able to get in touch with and get in contact with." And at that point, suddenly you've got a contract that you did not have to actually email for. Someone, a friend of a friend, recommended you, and you're in. So I can't stress enough how important the passive marketing is, along with the active marketing side of things, which is physically, going out and reaching for that job. But for today, now that we've got a few more people within the room, we can get this power hour of mock interviewing started. My name is Will Moritz, and I have been working in the creative field for about 20 years. I'm pretty unique when it comes to my creative journey because it is very non-linear. I did not get out of school, get hired by Ubisoft, and I haven't been a 3D modeler for them for the past 20 years. Rather, I've done a lot of things in the creative world that I think gives me a unique insight to be able to give you guys a lot of wisdom for all the different paths and trains that you can take. It's also given me a really good working strategy across a bunch of different disciplines. But as a result of that non-linear path from working as a creative director in video game companies to being a UI UX designer for financial tech companies, doing 3D models for construction equipment, saws and things like that, working for the CDC and doing virtual reality for them, television commercials, music videos, TVs and film. Um, I've learned a lot along the ways, and I've also had a ton of interviews and have been fortunate enough to be able to give some interviews as well. And so today I'm looking forward to sharing some light on that and giving you some insights and some coaching on how to be able to answer these interview questions that generally come up, tell you some of my least favorite interview questions, and we're going to do a little call and holler here today for how things are, for how this interview process can go. So without further ado, we've got, I want to make sure that I'm saying you guys' names right. Liana, Katrina, Garish, did I say that right? Garish, got your mic on, buddy? I know my volume's up and y'all can hear me. I already did one of these earlier this morning. All right. And Aiden Vasquez. Aiden, you've been in one of these meetings with me before, haven't you? All right. A little quiet on the back end. Katrina, are you able to turn your mic on and hear me okay? I can see that you raised your hand. What you got, buddy? Host, make moderator. I'm not going to kick you out. Perhaps you guys don't have a path to be able to ask the questions within the interview. Man, that is really, really frustrating. How can we do this? So I'll tell you what. I am inviting all of you guys to be co-hosts for this thing, and maybe that will give you some microphone privileges here. Yep, I can see your microphone's popping now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. How about that?
Okay, great. Close my closet.
Cool.
Hello.
Hey, Katrina. Cool beans. All right, this feels a lot more normal. This feels like it's good. Okay, gravy. So let's circle around this and do sort of a Dungeons and Dragons theater of the mind, setting the scene and setting the stage for you guys for what this interview process and working within a studio looks like. So you have been courting this studio for quite a while. You're super excited to finally be able to get brought in for an interview. There's been a couple emails back and forth. You've set up the date. You're actually coming into the physical location, or in 2024, maybe they've set up a time for you to get on a Zoom call for the initial interview. Who wants to waste the gas money? But you're nervous. This studio is somewhere that you would absolutely love to work at. And a lot of times when you go on to these interviews, what has happened is they've had, the timeline for studios is really, really steep. So everyone is always behind. You always feel like the art should have been done yesterday. You're very, very busy within these places because to make art and to get paid to do art, it is a very expensive process. So they don't like to waste their time. And a lot of these studios will have, foosball machines or ping pong or pool tables inside of them. You won't be playing those when you actually work inside of the studios. There's very, very little downtime. What I'm getting at here is that the time frame for the studios to actually be able to look at resumes for new hires is very limited. Taking on a new hire is already a really risky proposition because you've got your team, you've got your tested people that have been forged in the fires of deadlines, and you know that they can handle it, and you know that you can work well together, and you really want this new hire to be able to come in, jump into your pipeline quickly, and to be able to get the job done and mesh and get along with the team when you are down to the deadline and you've got to be able to get this project to launch and things become stressful. So that is to say that most of the time, in my experience and within studios, when we're hiring new people, or I'm going to be hiring someone new, usually it is a Friday afternoon at like 4 o'clock when I am sort of mentally checked out for the day. That I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to look at a couple of these emails. I'm going to see who's responded for this position that we're going to be hiring for and starting to run interviews for over the next month. And I'll go through and I'll look at these portfolios, and it is bam, 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 bam. I look through it and I say, okay, um, does this style match for the project that we're going to do? Does this work look like, they're on that level? Do I like the work? Does it seem exciting to me? And I do a couple clicks, maybe sometimes 30 seconds to 2 minutes per portfolio. And that's not a lot of time, right? To be able to capture someone's attention. That's why they always say, show your best work. Don't put everything on there. Keep your demo reel down to 1 minute, that type of thing. Because there's just not a lot of time. And this is sort of the last thing on people's back burner. They're focused on the project and for the client and trying to get it out the door, or the video game launch or whatever it happens to be, or getting the movie to theaters, or getting it over to the lawyers to approve. So when you come into one of these sessions, they've emailed you, they've taken the time. These are exhausted, tired people that you're hanging with, and this is like a field trip day for them, getting to speak with you. The people on the other end, a lot of times, larger studios and companies will let HR start to handle the hiring practice. So I think it's always important for the HR people who are not necessarily trained artists, who are not the art directors, who do not understand, poly count, and maybe they've been given a couple buzzwords by the art director to be able to fill this new position, a brief write-up in an email. Hey, could you give me some bullet points to put in for the LinkedIn post for this job that we're trying to hire? I don't know what to write. And those first HR people that see your portfolio and see your interview, they're not experts. So I think it's really important to be able to tell the story of the art that you're actually creating. Even if it's a character that you did personally and for spec work, you can say that is an independent project, is the corporate ease. We're probably going to use that word a lot. It means the corporate spin, the corporate business world, business speak for this is a personal project. I did this while I was learning. But instead of saying, I'm just a student, I did this as a student project, you can say that this was an independent project, or this was, something that was developed for an independent client, which is you. You can be your own client. People make their own short films all the time and release them. And, I think that this is a good sidestep. So oftentimes when beginning people are coming into these interviews, they're like, man, I've seen so many of these resumes where you get the resume and it says, student, I'm a student. I graduated at this point, because right now on your sheet, that is the big accomplishment within your career world and the thing that you've been working so hard for. And then you get out there and you start applying for these jobs, and they want you to have 1 to 2 years worth of experience. And what I'm describing to you right now is how to be able to start. Yes, you just graduated. Yes, you're still a student, but there are certain language modifiers that you can use that within the layout of your resume, to where you're not highlighting as much. Oh, I'm super green. I'm just getting started here. This is, something that I have absolutely zero professional experience in. And instead, you can start to cater the language to being more. Oh, got another one who joined. Anna, you're about to become a co-host so that you can use your microphone today. But you can start to curve the language to where you don't sound like quite as much of a student. And you can say that these are independent projects that you're working on, or that this was spec work. Spec work is one of my favorite things in the entire world. I was just talking to Katrina about this previously. This is something that happens at the professional level all the time that you might not be aware of. So whether you're an individual or you're a motion graphics house or a gaming studio or a film company, a lot of times you do developmental work for these companies that you're trying to, or for this product that you're trying to get out there. I remember I had a friend, he's still my buddy, but his name is Mark Montgomery. And Mark Montgomery is a world yo-yo champion. And Mark Montgomery worked for Huge, which is they've done a lot of things. They're a pretty interesting studio here in the city of Atlanta, where I live. And they did this big advertising campaign for Sprite. And they created this website. I think it was partnering with some NBA player or something like that. And the website was amazing. It was so cool looking. It was interactive. It had like all these, it was like an endless scroll, but then it would shift based on the decisions and choices that you would make. And like there was this huge tree. It was a really, really cool branding execution or digital brand execution for the Sprite beverage from the Coca-Cola company. Well, Sprite, after Huge presented this like grand novel idea to them, totally turned it down. And they said, nah, all we really want is just a billboard or something like that. So Huge, who had put in all this marketing and all this research, again, think of yourselves right now as researchers. You're doing marketing research for your field if you're doing personal projects. And the website never went live. It never got launched. But Mark turned around and put this entire website and a whole beautiful branding video of how they put this thing together on his website, and uses that as his portfolio piece to be able to say that he's worked for Coca-Cola. Yes, in the end, all they ended up doing was getting a billboard, but the story, right, of where they went and how they got there, the spec work that they created is really the exciting part of this. And that is something that you guys can absolutely do and start speaking on your projects from, is this idea of, yes, I did this as a student, but you doing it as a student isn't the main part of the story. The main part of the story is your creative journey, the creative problems that you solve trying to get there. And this is something that happens across the board. So it's not just with this branding company, Huge. All advertising agencies do this, all professional artists, in a lot of their portfolios, the work that they're showing is either personal projects or it is spec stuff that didn't finally make it to the video game or the movie or the film, and it's developmental. And that is totally okay as long as you don't have an NDA, to be able to show that stuff within your portfolio, and to start to talk about it in that type of way as well. So if you were creating, I don't know, you're real into furries and you're going to make the sequel to Five Nights at Freddy's, then you can turn around and say, maybe a studio didn't actually, pick this up or buy it. This is just a personal project for yourself, because that's what you like, 3D modeling. But then you turn around and you say, well, yeah, this is concept work that was created for a potential pitch to the Hollywood studios to create the sequel from the Five Nights at Freddy's film. This is something that you created in your parents' basement, and maybe you did create it to be a pitch for a sequel for Five Nights at Freddy's. Did it get pitched or not? How did the pitching go? If they ask that, then say, well, we're still waiting to hear back, and or that's still in the process, and we're still still getting returns on it, still waiting for some emails. And then they're going to move on with the interview, because that's kind of how it goes. So I hope this is a novel way to be able to think about how you're going to be talking about your work within this session that we're doing right now. So I'm going to switch it up and start asking you guys on the second half of this to start giving some call and hollers. So I'm going to give you guys some questions, and then you're going to answer, and then I'm going to kind of coach you and say, okay, that's a really good way to do it. Your answers aren't going to be wrong, but maybe there's a smarter way to sort of pull back the curtain on what they're thinking, and how you can approach that answer a little bit differently. So I hope this first sort of block of this has been useful for you guys. We've got the active versus passive marketing. We've got how to be able to structure even student projects and to be able to talk about personal projects as spec work rather than I'm a student, I'm super green, I've never done this before in a professional environment. And yeah, let's get into the questions now. Katrina, I was just talking to you. We've been chatting quite a bit, so I'm going to use you as the guinea pig. I feel like we got a good rapport here between you and I know that you're sharp. So I'm going to ask you all the hardball questions.
Oh no.
Oh
I
yeah.
tend to panic in interview questions and say
yeah.
like the first thing that comes to my mind and ramble while I try and construct a proper answer.
You know, that's a great point as well, is knowing that you don't have to completely fill the air within these interviews, and the sitting back, taking that deep breath, and just sort of letting that awkward pause at the end fill the air is totally fine. That's something that I'm a bit of a rambler myself, so something that I've had to learn. Okay, let's get it going here. So Katrina, welcome so much to this interview today. I'm so glad that you could join us. What would you say some of your strengths are?
Well, I think one of my greatest strengths, especially in terms of art and 3D modeling, is my analytical eye and my attention to detail, where I can really pinpoint the specific characteristics of an art style, the thing that makes it unique and defines it I feel like that makes me good at learning and producing a very specific art style.
I love it. That's a great 10 out of 10 answer. Other options that would be acceptable for this is that I have learned to use and love over the years is one of my greatest strengths is that I'm extremely adaptable as a designer. I can step into a new project and pick up pipelines very quickly, and I'm always open to learning a new way of either rendering or going through and doing 3D models or applying the textures. Answer B is yeah, I'm very good at picking up new styles and working with different art boards and being able to adhere to the design style that that you guys are using is basically what I'm saying. If you didn't see what you like on my portfolio, I can pick it up. You'll never stop hearing people say, well, do you have an example of this weird little thing that we want to do for our specific company? They're always going to ask that. They've always. We're looking for a penguin that's rainbow colored, but with like cheetah print on it as well. Do you have any examples of one of those in 3D modeling? No, but I've got 20 other characters that are going through this exact same pipeline. Yes, I can make you a penguin with leopard print. That's no problem. They don't see it, and the HR people don't see it. So being able to say that you can work in different pipelines and adapt to different styles is a great answer for strengths. All right. Katrina, I'm going to hit you with one more, and then we'll go with someone else. One more. All right. I'm going to give you my least favorite question. Sorry to hit you with this one, man. And they tend to ask this. I've been asked this quite a few times over the years. I always avoid it when I'm doing an interview because I don't like it. But some people still ask this one. They're like, "All right, what is your favorite project that you've worked on?" It's awful, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's hard. I'm guessing that the best answer would be one that's actually in the field and not just any project I've done.
Okay. Yes. Ooh, I hate that one.
Guess currently my favorite project that I finished, I guess the Sophie character that I'm doing is, I really like the style, but I haven't finished it yet. So I guess, okay, answer. My favorite project so far is the samurai character that I made recently. It's the most intricate character I've made so far, and there's a lot of great little details that I had fun working on. I really enjoyed the way the armor turned out, and specifically the patterns and the detailing on the metal that gives it a very painted look.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. So just a couple little tweaks within that phrasing. Instead of saying that I made, say that I worked on, and that I worked on can imply that there were other people that came in and helped out with the samurai as well, because they're always wanting to see on the back end, are you a social artist? And other things is that I feel like this piece is very detailed. It's got really interesting metal textures on it that was fascinating to be able to explore in and out. I remember I got asked that same question one time when I was interviewing in New York with the studio that used to do the Ninja Turtles cartoons back in the day, and then they also did a lot of commercial work too. And I went into this like old brick building, went up a couple flights of stairs, and got in there, and the place was completely deserted. They had all the old school like light boxes and animation tables, like 25 of them in there, and there are like two people in the studio. And they asked me that question, and I got so flustered because I was like, I like every project that I've done. Every one of them I've given in my all to. I've worked really hard on them, and I feel like I learned something from each one of the projects. And then this classic, like hard nosed, like New York woman just sat back and said, "But which one's your favorite?" And I was like, and I panicked, and I didn't get the job with them because I couldn't answer that particular question. So I think that's a good one. If someone asks you that, keep the focus on what is your favorite project that you've done. They're just looking for a cool story of discovery. Now, at my age, if I was asked that same thing again, I would turn around and say, one time I worked on a Missy Elliott music video, and the turnaround for this music video was extremely short, and there's a lot of great problem solving that took place to be able to get the artwork done within that season of time. And the video turned out extraordinary, and I got to meet one of my idols on set the next day, which was pretty outstanding. Katrina, what were you going to say?
So then, if they're looking for an interesting story about self-discovery, does that mean it doesn't have to be relevant to the field? So would that mean if I answered in high school, I had to write a 10-minute scene in the style of commedia dell'arte and perform it? And I had a lot of fun learning this slapstick and specific comedy stylings and workings of commedia dell'arte.
I have no idea.
Even if that was like a 3D art project, that would be fine to give like a writing and theater answer.
Absolutely, but you don't say that it was in high school. You say I was working on a project in which I had to really go in and do a lot of research on slapstick and this particular artist that's very famous for it. And the delivery, the end result of this was a 10-minute monologue and play that I performed that really showed off a utilization of what the form of slapstick in this artist really embodied. And at that point, it doesn't pin you as a young little greenling, and it doesn't have a specific time and place, but it is a project that you worked on.
Okay.
Yeah. So just a slight little turn of phrase there with these things. And again, that's sort of the overlying theme is here. If you don't have a lot of experience, how to be able to spin these things to where, in that person's head, when I say it that way, all of a sudden it sounds like some kind of cool theater project within New York City, and like you're working with a bunch of artists, and suddenly the interviewer has a much better idea of your passions and the things that you're interested in, and how you're sort of, latching on to these unique things and bringing them to life. And that's really valuable. That's a soft skill that they can check off on their box and be impressed by. One of the worst types of interviews that you can do, that some of y'all run into, and maybe you have before, is the round table of interviews where they bring you in for one day and you end up interviewing with like 6, 7, 8 different people, and they just keep spinning you through the wheels to where by the end of it, you don't even know who you're talking to, and you're trying to be clever and on the entire time. Nissan did this to me. A major college here in Georgia did that to me as well, and it's happened a few times. I don't like it whenever they do that. It can be very exhausting. Make sure that you are perfectly as like a witness for that day of interrogation. Ask for as much coffee from them as you can. All right, let's switch it up and go on to someone else. Aiden, mind if I hit you with a few questions real quick?
Yep, go for it.
All right, buddy. Aiden, I'm so glad that you're interviewing with us today for this position of, 3D janitor. Within our studio, we really value teamwork, and we're always trying to succeed. But could you describe your biggest failure to me?
Yeah, so my biggest failure would have been this project that took me about months to complete. It was an independent project, and I was learning a lot of the character art pipelines, the janitorial pipelines. And I considered it a failure because I couldn't get it done. It took me so long, but through a lot of perseverance, I eventually cleaned it up. I did what needed to be done, despite all of the nagging from myself and the greater world around me. And I did finish. I'm actually proud of that piece now, which is on my portfolio. It's the purple guy. He's called Mago.
All right, 10 out of 10 answer. Aiden, you have just dipped and dived and weaved through this very difficult question. Yeah, that is exactly what they're looking for, just to give you the bullet points for what he just did. So he took a negative, turned it into a positive, talked about his problem solving skills and how he overcame, a difficult situation. When this question comes up, there might be a very real failure or a firing or something that completely your computer blew up and fell out of your apartment window one time. That's not the story, right? So this is an interview process. They're looking for other things here, and that's exactly what they're looking for: is how you dealt with adversity, how you're able to overcome it. One of mine would be, if someone asked me this, I always like to tell the story. I was working for a Hollywood film company, and I was doing their title sequence. When you think of like DreamWorks and the little kid fishing off the moon, I was making one of those for them, and they had this vehicle that they wanted to go on all terrain. So it was going to start off in the water on the ocean, arrive on the shore, sprout some wheels, and then go off a cliff and sprout some wings. Well, I got everything working in there on the model, but as the vehicle actually started to arrive on shore, I was having a really hard time producing the shore and the brake lines for this project. And I couldn't get the water simulation to work correctly. I spent 3 months trying to problem solve and research on this shoreline, and burnt up a lot of my time on this project. And then by the very end of it, what we ended up doing as a solution, someone came to me and they offered me a different look. And they said, why don't you just move the camera to a low angle that still makes this vehicle feel, important and like it's the main part of the shot. But we just removed the shoreline and the water breaking on the sand and changing colors altogether. And as soon as I did that, I was able to finish the project. It turned out great, and they were super happy with it and never even asked about why we can't see the water breaking on the shoreline. So being able to look at these projects from alternative perspectives was really, what I learned from that very frustrating situation. And then you smile at them. All right, Aiden, let me hit you with another one real quick here. You guys are doing so good with this today. All right, so golly, this is always one that drives me nuts. Is so who are some artists that you admire and inspire you?
So there's kind of a wide variety. There's visual artists and there's musical artists as well. So I'll mention this person who I recently went to their concert just a couple nights ago. He's a guy called Callum Bowen. He does a lot of video game soundtracks, but he also does his own music. And what's inspiring about him is how much he isn't afraid to use his own voice. So what he's doing is unique. I don't see a lot of other music like it. And I think that bravery he has to press on has made a lot of people recognize and admire his work. So I feel the same about that. And with my own work, I would like to, and I do, succeed in bravely putting forth, the vision that I set out from the beginning. I am uncompromising in that vision.
Ooh, tight word there at the end to be able to use, uncompromising. So within the studio environment, a lot of times you've got folks that will change things at the final hour and come back. Some guy who's been on a golf course for 6 months of the year while you've been in front of the computer will say, I don't really like this thing. It doesn't make sense to me. Can we make it more sexy? Can we make it more exciting? And these changes at the final hour, compromise is the biggest part. So within a professional environment, working for clients that have requests at the final hour that you cannot even begin to imagine, being able to compromise is a really, really big thing. But I love the way that you answered that question. And I think you're awesome at interviewing. Why are you in this session? You've already got all the skills. You're getting it. You're putting it into practice, bringing it back down to a positive. I really thought it was smart for that one that you used music, because music is so much more relatable to people than what it is that we do. I think that there's a big disconnect, especially if you're with an HR person or, calling out some ArtStation fellow who no one has ever seen or heard of before, trying to visually paint a picture of their art style and why it's important to you, is pretty difficult. So yeah, for that one, man, I think I'm going to use that for the rest of my life. Is whenever someone asks me, who's one of your creative influences? Who do you really like an awful lot? I'm just going to use a musical artist. That's a great dodge on that. That's a really cool way to answer it. Yeah, my go-to in that, I always had a hard time answering it, because I feel like as a designer, so often we get inspiration from our entire world, right? You're constantly as an artist looking and studying different things and objects and colors and compositions and light, and you might pick something up off of a poster that inspires you to do a motion graphic, or you might see a comic book that suddenly makes you want to do a 3D model of that character and that particular style or pose. And yeah, just relate it back to music, man. That's the way to go with that one. All right. Anna, you're gonna go next. If you're ready to step up to the plate, unmute that mic. Anna.
Hey, hi. I'm afraid it's cutting too badly.
You have a bit of a rough connection, eh?
Yeah, it's really rough. I'm just I assuming your questions most of the time.
Okay, so you're having a little bit of trouble hearing right now, Anna.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. You're coming through here fine on this end. This is going to be recorded and it's going to be posted
because it's cut and also the picture disappear.
Ooh.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay, so I was just going to say that it's going
to... Guys, I think something is okay. Sorry?
It's okay, Anna. We're going to skip, not ask you any questions if you're having this much trouble with your connection right now, but this session will be recorded and you'll be able to rewatch the entire thing later.
Yeah, I watch it when it's recorded. I don't know. Do you hear me? Right. Okay. Probably it's better if I go off.
Yeah, I think mute the mic again. And if
because I assume I waste the time of the others. It's really interesting.
Oh, you're okay, Anna. This is the world that we live in nowadays. But if you have any further questions later on, and this goes for everyone in here, you guys are welcome to follow up with me. My Instagram is Skato. That's SKATOORG.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you hear me, but I found your stuff on Skato.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
All right.
And I sent it to some friends.
Cool. Thank you so much for having a look at it. Yeah, that phrase, Scato.org, Skato.org. You type it into Google, you'll be able to find me on all the portfolio sites, the Instagrams, it's my Facebook page, my website is scato.org. And yeah, if you have any other questions, either follow up with me through Art Heroes on LinkedIn, that's fine as well. And I'm happy to be able to help continue to coach you guys past this short 1 hour session. Whatever I can do for you, man. We're all in this together, trying to navigate this weird creative field. All right, Garish, am I saying your name right, sir? Please unmute your mic. Yay.
Yeah, hi.
Did I say it okay?
Yeah.
All right, Garish, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. Sounds like you're kind of jumping in and out a little bit as well. But if you don't mind, I'm going to try and hit you with 2 questions here, Garish. And the first one is, how do you deal with feedback? I think that's jumping on that last one that we had a moment ago.
Yeah, okay. So I'll be constantly working on the same project. So the new set of eyes help me to figure out what's wrong with the project. So I think feedback is like most important part of the project. Yeah.
Okay, Garish, so you feel like feedback is the most important part of the project. So when your manager comes in and they have a big change for you to be able to implement, how do you deal with that?
So I'll ask the change if the change is like really necessary, or is it going to really pop up on the screen or on the game, whatever it is.
Gotcha. Oh, Garish, man, that's such a good, honest, from the hip answer there. Turning around and saying, "Hey, is this really necessary, manager? Do we really need to implement this thing? Why reinvent the wheel?" That's something that happens all the time, honestly, within the creative world. It's called scope creep. And it's where you start off, hey, Garish, if you could just mute your microphone for a second. It happens when you've been working on a project for 3 months, and then you've got your big idea guy, the CEO, and he's already read 9 different tech articles. And he's like, well, what if we make this thing, this 2D side scroller into a 3D perspective game, and we run it on the Oculus? And you have to go back to him at that point and say, hey, look, this is the main purpose of this scene. I think, Garish, that limited answer speaks a lot to maintaining your professionalism as an artist and as a designer. And it's a total soft skill to be able to know when to push back, when those revisions are unreasonable, when the suggestions are not going to benefit whatever creative problem you're trying to solve. And then when to just bite the bullet and to be able to say, yeah, we can do that. No problem. I'll knock it out. And the way that I handle it in a professional environment is I kind of keep a running tab, right? You don't want to, become difficult to work with and be the person that's always fighting back against things. But at the same time, there are moments when you have to say, hey, look, this is not really going to help the idea that we've been working on for the past 6 months be able to get to launch. And is this the best use of our time? And I think, straddling that line between, the question originally was, how do you handle feedback is, I do my best to be able to implement feedback and to be able to take constructive criticism, and at the same time maintain a good, healthy dialogue about the pipeline and the direction of the project as we move forward and move towards the deadline. And at that point, I just corporate eased, I just business speaked my way through that question. Stop, Don't say anything else after that, and just smile at them and wait for the next question. That's a good way to be able to defer it. You know, I take it, but still, you know, maintain my position as a competent, creative individual that can make sound decisions on my own, and then, you know, pass the torch back off to them. Garish, let's go with one more question for you, sir. All right. Okay, let's switch it around and get towards the back half of the interview. So Garish, what is something that is important to you when working with a studio or working with a company?
Recently, I have faced a problem with my company. I live in India, so here it's like I think the most of the companies are like really toxic, and the work-life balance is like really messed up. So the first thing I look for is like how good is the team and how friendly are they? Yeah, how is the work-life balance and etc.
Oh man, I love that answer, and that's such an honest thing as well, because it's something that we're all dealing with in any facet of the creative field. Like I said at the beginning, art is very expensive to make, and because it costs so much money to be able to do this stuff, timelines are always crunched, and they want you to get as much done as you possibly can. That creates a lot of stressful situations also within a studio environment, and all studios are looking for people that can come in and get into the trenches, handle this type of stress, and still get along and have a good working relationship and camaraderie with the other people that are in the studio with them. And so, how to be able to address work-life balance? Man, if I was an HR person, I would be stewing in my chair if someone came in and they're like, well, one thing that's really important to me with a company is a good work-life balance. And then you already know that your company that you're about to hire this person for has no work-life balance at all. As the HR people, I would say, you know, that's something that we really value here as well. And we do tend to get very busy at times, but we always try and give our employees a break after that and to give them some downtime as well. And when you hear that type of answer, man, you know you're coming in on a Saturday. You know you're going to be working on the weekends for these people. And, you know, I think that's another really good thing that you brought up too, is really looking at, you know, do you get along with these folks? I remember I came in to do the Delta flight safety video a number of years ago. In my first day working with this studio, nobody said hi to me. Like, everyone had their backs turned. I was like, where do I sit? What's going on? And they just kind of pointed to like, over here. And I was like, what is this place? This doesn't feel friendly. There's only like 5 people in the room and I'm getting ghosted on my first day. Is this some kind of like, you know, we're going to act hard towards you? And they were jerks the entire time. I really did not like working for that studio. And from that point forward, really looking at the studio's culture and how people get along and how friendly they are has become a pretty important thing to me. And I hope that you guys make it important for yourselves as well with where that you're going. You know, this stuff and this passion that we have to be able to create can really, and it's, you know, art is an emotional thing too. Oftentimes we're talking about extremely abstract concepts that are difficult to talk about. If you've been working for like, you know, 48 hours straight, and then you're still trying to make sense of like these weird things that you're trying to describe visually, it can be really, really frustrating to be talking to a jerk about that, or someone that doesn't have a lot of emotional empathy. So yeah, look for that. Look for a good level of emotional empathy within the company. So the back part of this thing today, let's see here. Garish, Malin, we haven't done any questions with you yet.
Hello.
I don't think so. Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so glad to hear that. Did I say your name all right?
Yeah, you did.
All right, cool beans. Malin, you're going to help us turn it back to the end of the interview process and the end of this session. So you and I are going to play off one another. You've successfully made it through all the questions. Maybe you've been given a tour of the studio. The place looks really cool on the inside. People seem neat. They seem nice here. They seem generally happy. No one's sleeping at their desk. And so they bring you back at the end of the interview and they say, okay, do you have any questions for us? Malin, do you have any questions for us? What would you ask a studio?
So, because I always ask a lot of questions when I'm in interviews, so I'm not sure what questions I have asked already, but I would ask them, so how do we move forward? Should I contact you? Will you contact me? Can I get some email to you?
Yeah, I think that's a great one, right? So, don't leave the interview without knowing, joke around with me like, all right, where's the contract? We signing papers today? What's going on? That happened to be one time where I had got a job offer from Disney, and a really cool Freestyle Collective was the name of the studio out in San Francisco. And I was living in New York at the time. I drove across the country in 3 days to go to this interview for Freestyle Collective. They were going to hire me. Everything looked good. And it was on a Friday. And over that weekend, their parent company got bought or sold by someone else, and they froze all hiring. So I waited like Monday, Tuesday, hadn't heard anything from them. Wednesday, I had to like email them, and they're like, oh yeah, that job doesn't exist anymore. They've frozen all hiring. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. And man, I wish I had followed up in that situation with what the communication afterwards should have looked like. Malin, is there any other questions? So I love that, following up to ask for a timeline for when you're going to start, what the start date looks like, when you're going to sign the paperwork. But any other questions that you have?
Not that comes up in my head right now.
Hey, that's okay, man. This is always a tricky one, right? So some of the questions that I like to ask are, how does your studio handle, how does your studio handle deadlines? That's a great one to ask off the bat. Is, when it comes to crunch hour, are you expecting everyone to stay awake, for a week straight? Are these deadlines mutable? Do they generally achieve their deadlines? Or another great question that's positive to be able to ask within an interview is, this is the time where you're really sort of figuring out, is this a good fit for you guys? Is this going to be a good working relationship? Where do you fit into the company? And you've already done your research, but this is also, just for yourself to be able to have some fun with them, is to say, what are the goals that you guys have going into this year? What are some big things that you're trying to accomplish? And say, what is the studio's 5-year goal? What are the long-term goals that your studio has as well? And that'll really give you an idea of what their growth rate looks like. Do they want to hire up and double their scale, double their size? Are they looking to move to a new facility? How many games or projects do they have in the pipeline coming down? And you can also ask things along the lines of, what do you guys do to maintain your company culture? And that's a good question as well. If you're in a place where it is just come in 9 to 5, drudgery, sit at your computer, never really talk to anybody, it's not a good working environment. So how do you, do you guys take time? Do you go out to lunch together? Do you have a night on Friday, like they might do in Japan, where you just go out and get balls wasted with your coworkers? And that type of stuff really does help a lot to build that sort of team camaraderie within a group. I got a couple more here, Malin, one more for you. So here we go. Another good one to be able to ask is, what lessons has your studio learned along the way. So this is a neat one, right? Every one of these studios, just like you as an artist, have got your own story and your own set of trials and tribulations, accomplishments, failures, and difficult things that you've had to overcome. Being able to learn, what are sort of more of the insight. That's the stuff that they're not going to list on their website. But what are some lessons that you guys have learned? And I would also ask questions like, all right, so how many people are within a team? How are the teams structured? What does your file management system look like? That's been a nightmare for me in the past. I've come into some places and they really don't have one. And so you come in your first day, they give you, that softball kind of project to get started on, and you end up having to ask 5 or 6 times, hey, where's the files at? Where are things actually located? And that can help you out quite a bit too. Yesterday I'm going to wrap it up here in the next 5 minutes, but last one that I'll end with is, I did an hour-long session yesterday, if you guys were not in that, about how to be able to negotiate salaries. So I just want to talk very briefly, under a minute, on that, and then open it up for you guys if you have any general questions. But so when it comes to the salary negotiation, the good rule of thumb here is, and they know this as well, let them speak first. And please, please, please make sure, I know you're hungry to get the job. I know you're hungry to get hired. You're excited for working for these people, that you are weighing the benefits versus the negatives, and that it is a livable wage for you to be able to actually save money to be able to get onto that next job, especially with the climate of hiring and firing and ballooning up for big projects and then compressing back down to like core staff when a project is completed. That happens all the time within this industry. Please, with that in mind, make sure that if they come back and they lowball you, ask something that is more realistic. And always keep in mind that you feel like you are this green, just out of school person that doesn't have a lot of experience. But the other side of it that I'm describing to you today is that these are tired, overworked people that do not have a lot of time to be able to interview, and they are extremely deadline driven. So if you have been able to make it this far into the interview process, they need to hire someone. They need to hire someone fast. They don't have a lot of time to be able to spin their wheels on this. And more than likely, if you come back with a salary counter offer after they say the number first, that they will be amendable to it, or they will try and work with you. And also be very aware of what your duties are for this job that you're getting hired for. I can't tell you how many times I've been hired to be a 3D modeler, and before I know it, I've got After Effects and Premiere, and I'm working with video stuff. I'm designing banners when there's some downtime, and you end up becoming kind of a one-man band for these studios, and that's not really fair. You should be paid for those extra skills. So that's something to consider asking about within the interview, and when the time to talk about money comes up as well. And don't be scared to ask for overtime. All right, so in these last 3 minutes, do you guys have any questions for me? Any other things after hearing all this that's just sort of percolating in your brain that you want to throw out there? Do my idling dance. Okay, cool. So you guys should get, after this, a survey to be able to say what you thought about this hour. I hope that this information was useful for you. I could spend the rest of today asking you guys questions one-on-one and really coaching you on these things. Please follow up if you have any questions, if you've got an interview that's coming up soon with me on either Instagram or some other network, and I'll do my best to be able to help you out. So you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, or morning, and thank you so much for coming to this one today. Hope it was useful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You guys take it easy.
Have a nice day. Bye.